Well, we continue to ride the nice weather train overall in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic states, while there's much-needed rain across the lower portion of the Gulf states, and they need it. A lot of the country today enjoyed a nice day, some action up in the Pacific Northwest. We've got a really interesting long-range pattern setting up, and we're going to talk about that tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. And that Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast is brought to you by Tempest by WeatherFlow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system, and you too can join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. It's very easy to install. You run it right off your mobile device, and with Christmas and the holidays coming up, makes a great gift for science-minded youngsters. The link is pinned to the top of the chat board because Tempest is an affiliate of the Joe and Joe Weather Show. And if you do decide to purchase this or anything else they sell, and they've got smart weather fashion too, use the coupon code I1o Weather Station. And if you do, you'll save some money, won't you, Joe Rayo?
Well, you'll save 10%. That ain't anything to sneeze at. So
yeah,
take advantage of that.
Exactly. All right. And here we are. It's Monday. It is the 13th of November. And
it's Felix Unger Day.
It's Felix Unger Day, yes. On this day, Felix Unger was thrown out of his house, right?
Right. That request came from his wife. Deep down, he knew she was right, but he also knew that someday he would return to her. And interestingly, after 5 years, when the series finally ended, they ended it on that note that he did return to his wife.
Well, yeah, well, it kind of made sense. It would be better if what would have happened if the show had just stopped and they didn't do that. At least it made it certainly made some sense.
Yes.
Anyhow, I think it's going to be a very interesting next few weeks with this overall pattern that is developing. And I think if anyone was making the argument that before, because no, that usually doesn't start till December 1st, but you can't deny now the fact. Not that you have. I'm just saying, if you were denying the fact that this is somehow going to wind up being the same as last winter, I think the evidence right now is pretty overwhelming that we're going to be starting it at least a whole lot differently than we did last winter. The Pacific.
I agree.
I mean, what really impresses me though is that the Pacific is totally different, and there's a few other things going on that I want to talk about, which includes the El Nino and all the rest of it. But I think we could see something early if this pattern that is being advertised by the models winds up verifying.
It certainly does look like I mean, I agree with you 100%. I've been saying this for a long time that the script is totally different right now compared to 1 year ago. And hey, look, in Central Park, they had, 2.2 inches of snow for the entire winter season last year. I mean, with that amount of snowfall, easily, it's going to be more this year. Even if it is maybe only 2.3 inches, it's more than what they had last year.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's going to be a no-brainer. But on the other hand, I would also like to point out to those that immediately automatically sort of jump on this bandwagon that, I mentioned the other day, I'm getting more and more uncomfortable. Actually, and I even saw the folks on Capitol Weather Gang saying the same thing. I'm getting more and more uncomfortable with the fact that all of these people seem to be on the same side of the boat, which is, a colder, snowier winter. Now, again, the bar is low. But I'm thinking that when they're saying that in terms of normals and not in terms of comparison to last year. And the fact that all of them are on that side of the table, or just about all of them that I've seen are on that side of the table, it does bother me. It does bother me because, the stage is set for something, for something different to occur if everybody's on what I usually call the same side of the trade.
Well, we'll see. Now, what is possibly making you so?
I
What's the?
just I just don't like being, you know, I don't mind being in a
You don't want to be on the same side as all the others who are saying it's
well
going to be a cold, snowy winter.
well I no no I don't mind being amongst a small group of people that are saying that. Okay. Um, or even a medium-sized group. But when almost everybody is saying it, my nature, which is always to try to look to, always try to look at the other side of the trade, is wanting to look at the other side of the trade. Right now, I can't seem to find anything that that says that concept, that forecast idea, is doesn't have merit. I think it does to a fair extent, but I just get uncomfortable when everybody's in the same place because it's really unusual, Joe, for just about everybody to be right, particularly when it comes to this seasonal forecast, which reflexively every single year those same people say the same thing, regardless of what the pattern shows.
So what you're saying is it's always the same. No one is ever saying. You were looking around looking for somebody who's saying this is going to be an unseasonably warm or mild winter, or well, I mean it's an El Nino winter, and especially those who have been saying and preaching it's a strong El Nino. That usually means that for this part of the country, at least for our neck of the woods here in the Northeast, it's going to be unusually mild, and it's also going to be rather wet.
Right, but
And
but 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 there is what is not being mentioned is the fact that there is debate about whether it's going to be a strong El Nino. And I would pose the argument that, well, and the other thing is, if it is a strong El Nino, usually what you see in the Pacific in terms of the water temperature profile, I got to go back and look at 2015, 2016, because that El Nino, my memory is a little, questionable these days, but you could see the super El Nino with the ocean water temperatures the way they were, but at the same time, if I remember correctly, the ocean water temperatures up in the northern Pacific were below normal, and we have the opposite of that now. And I think those warmer temperatures of the northern Pacific are important because that's part of that negative East Pacific oscillation thing. That you know how much I love that. To see the East Pacific oscillation in a negative phase because that's always a colder phase. That's a colder scheme of weather for Canada and for the Northeast and for probably at least the northern half of the United States east of the Rockies. So there are differences. And I'm not a big believer in this. There's all this concept of this sort of this cookie cutter thing where there is, we have an El Nino, therefore the weather is going to be like this for 3 months.
well, that's what NOAA. The concept that NOAA is saying is that it's going to be mild and it's going to be a bit on the wet side. Your typical or your standard El Nino forecast. But there are other things that sometimes go into the forecast for a winter season, not just flat out, hey, it's an El Nino. So,
Right.
hey, Charlie, get out the El Nino map.
Right. Well, I mean, we've discussed this. That's sort of what that seems to be what they do, with the usual disclaimer about the North Atlantic oscillation and whether that's going to be around or not. But anyway, I'm still, again, from what I'm seeing now, at least from the standpoint of, let's say, the next 3 or 4 weeks, uh, it looked for winter weather lovers. I mean, in a sense, it looks promising. It's early, so it's going to be tough you're going to have setups. If there are setups, they're going to have to be almost perfect near the coast. They may not need to be perfect as you go inland, but they need to be somewhat perfect. But time is on your side here because we're going into December. So each day the normal temperature drop. Every 3 or 4 days, the average temperature drops by another degree, and we're still going down. So, uh, well, I mean, we'll see. I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, we just have to wait and see how this all pieces together.
Well, I will tell you this, that on the Climate Prediction Center forecasts, we're still above normal through 8 to 14 days. However, if you make the comparison between the 6 to 10 and the 8 to 14 day maps, there's a whole area below normal that just is rapidly expanding from the Pacific Northwest and the part of the northern plains. By the time you get to 8 to 14 days, that area below normal has made it all the way to the western Great Lakes.
What's the dates on that?
The 6 to 10 is for the 19th through the 23rd, which means the 19th to Thanksgiving.
All right. So what do they have on the 6 to 10? You can't please. I didn't look at it. Please don't tell me they have above normal temperatures in the Northeast.
They have near normal.
Oh, thank glory, bully for them.
But just to the west is a broad area, I would say roughly 700 or 800 miles wide of above normal temperatures covering all of the Great Lakes, Wisconsin, Minnesota, and all the way down through the central and central plains down to the Gulf Coast, including Florida.
All right, let me ask you this question. Based on today's model runs, where there's where Monday morning in Monday morning there's a 522 thickness that cuts across New Jersey, all right, and a 516 thickness reading up into Albany. Would you go near normal with that?
No.
I mean, we're supposedly barely at 540 now, and today finished pretty well below normal for most people, if not everybody, in the Northeast and Northern Mid-Atlantic states. And as I recall, about a week ago, did they not have it just like everybody above normal from the 19th on?
They have
on their old forecast when we remember when you showed it, they had above normal everywhere for next week, and because we argued about the fact you said that there was a forecaster there whose name you didn't recognize.
Right, I did not recognize the names, so maybe this is like a rookie.
All right, well, we'll see what happens, whether he gets heard from again or not. The chairman, Scott Briller, is the first to hit the tip jar tonight. He said Central Park has still not hit 32 degrees. The record for the latest date is December 22nd. So that's not in danger yet, and I doubt if what comes to pass over the next 10 days it will happen.
I was surprised because Joe, outside of New York City,
everybody else has
temperatures. Well, I mean temperatures are way down. I mean Montgomery got to 19 degrees this morning. I got down to 26, and it was the coldest morning that I had going back to the beginning of April. But I would have thought that this would have been enough to knock the temperature at Central Park down to the freezing mark, or if not, just barely above freezing. I think they only got down to 35. So I don't know.
Joseph Gallo on the chat board says, I feel like NOAA's outlooks are misleading because they aren't forecasts, but rather probability maps. I think that when people look at them, they see the color scheme and make assumptions. Joseph, I think you're 100% correct. And the other thing about those 3-month forecasts, okay, so it's above normal. That's over 90 days. That doesn't mean that there can't be stretches in there, and not short ones either, depending on what the overall winter pattern is, where the weather gets quite cold and can be quite snowy depending on how it sets up. And on the other side of that, just to be fair, I mean, it could have said below normal temperatures and above normal precip, and I think if you look deep enough, you can find winters where the temperatures were below normal, and so was the snowfall, because of the fact that either there was just an absolute lack of precip during those months, or The precip only came when the temperatures warmed up. So there's a lot here. There's a lot to unpack when you get these really sort of generic forecasts. And I've said so many times, unless you're an agricultural guy, or if you're trading heating oil futures or oil futures or gasoline futures, whatever, energy futures, uh, those forecasts really aren't practically useful for most people.
John Franstans on the chat board says, as meteorologist, this is going to be the warmest in New England. Disagree, Joe and Joe. Sorry.
Well, the warmest in New England. I'm not sure what you mean by warmest. Are you saying that it's going to be warmer than normal? Are you going to say? Are you saying that? Are you saying warmest in terms of the warmest ever, or the top 10 warmest? I'm not sure what you mean by that. So if you could give it a little context, we could go from there. But no matter. The way it would set up, it would be. Oh, you think it's going to be the warmest ever in New England? Okay. All right. I'll take the other side of that bet. I'll easily take the other side of that bet. That New England is not going to have its warmest winter ever.
That's saying quite a bit. I think they had one of their warmest winters, not last winter, but the winter before. The winter of 2021 was, or 2022. I don't know. I'm getting all mixed up now in terms of my years.
Right, Latex Dream says blasphemy. Well,
by the way,
it sort of is among winter weather lovers. That is, you are being blasphemous, John. Just so you know, we have a lot of snow lovers here on this on the chat board. And speaking of the chat board, Joe,
Joseph Gallo called you Sir Cioffi.
Oh,
I didn't know that you were knighted or whatever.
Oh, knighted. I've been knighted. Welcome, by the way, everybody on the chat board tonight. It's always good to see all the regulars here, and welcome to those of you who are lurking in the background. WPC, that could be you. The Joe and Joe Weather Show is on Sunday through Thursdays at 7:35. Sometimes we're on Fridays and Saturdays when there are storms around, and if there is, we will let you know. Make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel and turn on the notifications so you never miss us. Because it's sad. It's sad because if you miss us, we'll miss you.
I would miss them.
Yes. All right, so I will start the night off, Joe. I wrote a long-range post for my those of you who are on my subscription weather site on Patreon, and that also came with a video, a 16-minute video, which nobody gets to see but those that are on that site. Anyway. Shameless.
This is like something Pablo Picasso made.
Right, shameless self-promotion. So what I did here is, we were talking about this last night, and I thought it would be better if I just kind of drew it off, before the show, and then put it on the screen so that everybody could see. So, in black, roughly in black, is what the jet stream pattern looked like last year with the La Nina and the jet stream fire hose that was in the Pacific that went into California. And then, of course, you had the strong southeast ridge, which is that finger that points in from the Atlantic and goes into the Gulf states there, and then turns northeastward. So there was no cold air to speak of. Well, actually, relatively so, except for two outbreaks that we had last winter, two minor breaks in the major pattern. There were really no cold outbreaks anywhere that lasted for a long period of time. So with that, I drew over it. I randomly pulled out the 10-day GFS today, and just in yellow show you what the jet stream looks like. And I mean, it's fairly clear that there are major differences here compared to last year. Okay. You don't have that fire hose jet. What is really important to notice is the fact that you have a trough that has been rather persistent And one of the things I saw on today's run, Joe, on both the European and the GFS and in the Canadian and on the ensembles, is that out in the Pacific along 160 degrees west, which is the longitude that runs just to the west of the westernmost Hawaiian island, and goes all the way back up to the Aleutians, is that we keep getting troughs that are dropping into that position, and then as a result, anytime you get a trough that's out there around 160, 150, 160, you're going to wind up with ridging to the east of that, which would be along the west coast, or maybe into the Rockies if the trough is, instead of, let's say, at 160, maybe it's at 150. But in either case, you then wind up with troughs in the eastern part of the United States, and that's what that's what the models are pointing to over time. Okay, so John. Okay, see, this is where John Fran stands. This is where you are in danger of getting thrown off, because your statement saying it'll be the December will be the warmest by January and February in New England. No snow in anywhere in New England. Okay, so clearly,
lots of luck with that.
Right. So clearly, and now you're saying no snow for 2 winters, 25, 20 for 20. I don't understand what 25 or 26 means. Okay, so you're in danger. You've already been labeled a troll by flood weather, so that right there puts you in a bad place. And if you keep up the crap and you're not here to just kind of enjoy the show and maybe learn something, you're gonna get thrown off. Okay, so I'm giving you a warning, and I don't know what baby means, but I'm just giving you a warning. So there
Well,
you
I'd like to know from John Franstan's if he's making such a declarative statement that for the next 2 winters, or for the 2 winters 25, 26, New England will not see any snow. What is the explanation?
He says just models. I don't know what that means. Just weather models.
You're saying my models.
Oh, your models? Okay. Well, you know what? Your models need to go to France, to Paris, for the for the spring show. Okay, he's gone. So here you go. So there's that. Now let's continue, because we talked about the El Nino, and I looked back, Joe, going back to when we had Dave Tolerus on the show and the state of the El Nino, and here we are on the 13th. Dave was on 2.5, 3 weeks ago. So to me, now I'm eyeballing this, just looking at the graphic. There might be numbers that might say otherwise, might be a little bit different, but there hasn't been, in my view, any material change in the strength of this El Nino. And if you look at and I don't have them, but I did see the European model forecast for the El Nino, and the European has the El Nino peaking in the next 2 or 3 weeks, and then on a steady decline as we go through the rest of December, January, and February. So I think we should bear that in mind.
And that's what Bill Kirk over at the Weather 360, I mentioned this about a month ago. He said, well, this El Nino is going to peak really quickly by mid to late November, he was saying back then, and then look at it to decline rapidly. And the fact that by the time we get to mid or late winter, we'd be dealing with a weak El Nino or no El Nino at all is the reason that he thinks that we're going to be seeing quite a bit of snow in this part of the country, and also quite a few nor'easters. So so far, that seems to be on track, that we'll be seeing a rapid increase in El Nino. And of course, if it does peak later on this month or early in December, it doesn't have a chance, or doesn't have time to acquire the characteristics of a moderate or strong El Nino. It'll be an El Nino, but certainly, I've seen so many things on the internet, Joe, on social media, referring to this as the super El Nino or major El Nino. And as Dave pointed out when he was with us last month, or a few weeks ago, that just ain't going to happen. And that one of the reasons is what you see on the screen right now. Yeah, there's an El Nino, but what about that area of cooler than normal water
Well,
that's located just to the north of
well,
that?
David and I discussed that. I had brought that up because that cold pool of water, and Dave's argument is, and I agree with it, is that Dave's argument is that pool of water, cool water, and by the way, that has not disappeared either. That is the same as it was 3 weeks ago. And he argued that cool pool of water is mitigating the El Nino from developing any further. And here's another question in my mind: if the El Nino has peaked, okay, let's just make an assumption. Let's say the El Nino is peaking in the next 3 weeks. Its influence on the atmosphere right now, when you look at an upper air that looks like I described in this map with the jet stream in yellow, they don't match. Okay, they do not match. If this was going to be a super strong El Nino, that northern jet would not be that way. Okay, the southern jet might be, but the northern jet would not be that way. So if the El Nino, I guess what I'm saying is, if the El Nino can't create a warm pattern right now, if it is nearing its peak, what's going to happen when it starts to weaken?
And that's a good question. What will happen?
Right, and also we should also point out, yes, there is the El Nino, okay, but I forgot who said that, but the El Nino correlation it's not 100%, it's not even 50%, it's somewhere around 25 to 30%. So maybe maybe when it's a super El Nino, it's 100%, but perhaps when it's something less than that, the impacts are going to be far less than you might believe, and that other factors going on are going to take over and have more control than the actual El Nino.
And I'm just reading Joseph Gallo's comment. The Pacific meridional mode is what Dave was honing in on, I believe. It is in a negative state at the moment, which is causing that pool of cool water. So,
Joe, if you could, by the way, because Michael McGuire hit the tip jar tonight. Thank you, Michael. And he asked if we could talk. Maybe you could pull the maps up and have them ready. About any hope for rain in Hawaii, specifically Maui, where his parents are telling him that there's a new wildfire that has broken out today. So if you could maybe pull up a few things, and we could take a look at that in a few minutes. Does that work?
okay.
Does that work for you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Perfect. And David Fuller, also, who is missing his summer weather, his summer beach weather, hit the tip jar. Thank you so much. David, very much appreciated. All right, so we've got this done. I'm gonna just switch over now. Of course, it had to happen. The Nestis website where we get the GOES satellite loop. It went down about 30 minutes ago, and I think it may still be down. That's why it says on the screen, this site can't be reached. So we'll try again later to take a look. But in the meantime, we can at least look at what's going on the radar. And I was a little surprised with this. This trough kind of overperformed for a trough, producing some sprinkles and showers. I really didn't pay too much heed to this trough as it moved on through. Actually, I'm watching. There's actually some rather hefty showers that have moved off Lake Ontario that are now moving into north central New York and up near Syracuse. So definitely overperformed here.
I had said on my Facebook forecast on Saturday that there was a chance. I thought there might be a chance of a shower or two Monday night, tonight. Then yesterday, I looked at the numbers and the maps, and I said, well, it looks like that went by the board. I just went clouds. I said late clouds, sun giving way to clouds later in the day today, and then clearing out overnight. I did not mention any precipitation, but indeed, there is, as you point out, Joe, there's a shot. And actually, In some places, from about New York City on south, there are a few localized, I wouldn't say heavy, but rather moderate showers that are or were falling as of a little while ago. So it's really, you're right. This whole pattern, this trough certainly overperformed based upon what the models were suggesting over the last couple of days.
Um, uh, yeah, it really did. And the rest of the East Coast is actually in good shape on the radar until you get to the Florida Panhandle. Now, this is it's too bad that this could not have pushed its way further north. Most of the heavier rains earlier today were concentrated along the Texas coastal bend. We have been seeing some occasional patches of moderate to heavy rain in parts of southeast Louisiana. They have a severe drought. They have an extreme drought, or is it or exceptional? I forget. It's bad. I mean, just plain and simple, it's bad. But at least they've gotten a couple of shots of rain in the last week, and much of that is just sort of stretched out right along the immediate Gulf Coast. We've got some showers and a few downpours in central Texas. Nothing much is happening up in the Pacific Northwest. Now, I just want to acknowledge, by the way, William Uber, thank you for the hitting the tip jar, and he thanks us, or he thanks me for the rant. Fledweather, thank you, Fledweather, for hitting the tip jar. Most appreciated. But I have to really, Joe, Helen Bertona, okay? Thank you for hitting Super Chat, first off. And then Helen says, a popular network this morning had the same jet illustration that I have. Wonder if they were watching. Well, Helen, it's no secret that there are so many people whose names I cannot mention that are lurking, even as we speak, in the background here on the Joe and Joe Weather Show. Would you not agree, Joe Rayo? There are lurkers, very famous lurkers. Taylor Swift might be one of them. You never know. She does outdoor concerts. She might be concerned. Just saying.
It's a sad part is that if Taylor Swift were to announce that she was doing weather on television, every television station in the country, every network would be after her to do that job.
It'd be great if she was watching on this show, because we would instantly have 15,000, 15 million followers or whatever it's. Johnny Quest has just hit the tip jar. Thank you, Johnny. Thank you for being very generous, hitting Super Chat. And he says there are 47 volcanoes erupting right now, including Mount Etna. Oh my! There is a high chance of some. I did also hear about this. That there's a chance that the Iceland, one of the volcanoes in Iceland may erupt, and that Mount St. Helens is acting up, Joe. So all these eruptions may be if you get an eruption that puts enough ash up into the stratosphere, yes, it will impact the weather in the intermediate term and in the longer term maybe.
And Dr. Cohen, by the way, and we haven't made a reference to him since last winter or early spring, is suggesting, Joe, that the polar vortex is going to stretch out to a degree by later this month, and eventually is going to bring much colder weather into our part of the world by the time we get to the end of November or the beginning of December.
Well, you throw that on top of the pattern that's being offered now by the models. I think that that does certainly make sense. Joe's Weather Channel just hit Super Chat. He says, Joe, we're going to have to put you on the Giants' offensive line at this rate. Am I ready? Listen, I'm wearing my Giants sweatshirt because it is useful, because it keeps me warm. All right. And the way to look at it, the Giants are like last winter, okay? There really is no downside from here. It's all upside. No, you can't it can't possibly be any worse for winter weather and snow lovers than last year. That's like the Giants. They can't get any worse. They could lose every.
The upside for the Giants is that they're in the running now with the Chicago Bears for the #1 draft pick at the end of the season.
Exactly.
There's your upside. And the Jets, you talk about a drought in Hawaii. The Jets have a drought. They have not scored a touchdown in 3 games. All their scoring has been via the field goal.
Yes.
This guy that they've got as quarterback, or this kid that they have as quarterback, can't seem to throw a touchdown.
Yeah.
He'll go back. He'll hand the ball off. He'll run with the ball. He'll bootleg it, but he can't throw a touchdown.
No, that's sad.
So,
New York football is sad this year.
you know
WP,
what?
yeah, it's I rarely get the games down here anyway, so and it's just as well. WPC has a half inch to 3/4 of an inch indicated for the Northeast, and this will be for the weather front maybe and the low coming up the coast for Friday and Saturday. Immediate Gulf Coast from southeast Louisiana to the Florida Panhandle, 2 to 3 inches there. The east coast of Florida, 2 to 5 inches there. And half an inch to some places right along the immediate coast of California, showing up 1.5 inches or more. And then that half inch to 3/4 of an inch to maybe an inch or so runs all the way up the coasts of Washington and Oregon. And as far as snow is concerned, not much really. Still just in the northern Rockies where we have higher probabilities for at least 2 inches over the next 72 hours. Nothing of consequence really in the Northeast. And when we go to the long range, and this is for, I kind of jumped over to Saturday into Sun. Well, let me see here. Nothing for Saturday. Small patch for Friday. So let's see what was Sunday. All right, for Sunday, you got some patches here where there's a 10 to 30% chance for a few inches. Western Colorado, central and northern Idaho, and up the Cascades. And then Monday, they've got it a bit more robust in central and western Colorado, down through central Utah, eastern Idaho, western Wyoming, western Montana, northern Idaho, and again up in the Cascades. But if we look in the east, just for laughs, I might as well move it over to the east. You'll notice that they're really not showing much of anything in the east, except for a small part in northern Maine for late Saturday into Sunday. But it's very, very early in the game here. We're not even to the halfway point of the month. All right, so with regards to the latest model run, I want to do the upper air. Joe, would you acknowledge the latest super chat hits, please?
I will. So far, we have had the chairman, David Fuller, Michael McGuire, William Huber, Fled Weather, Helen Bertona, Johnny Quest, Joe's Weather Channel, and please forgive me if I mispronounce it, Anup Patel Vlogs. So we've had all those people hit super chat tonight.
And he says was on the Weather Channel app this morning and found out they now charge money to watch certain future projections. This is insane. But other than that, temperatures have been great in South Georgia. Well, that's good to hear that you're on the other side of my state because I'm in North Georgia. Yeah, that's the free world of the internet is vanishing fairly quickly because everybody is going to a subscription model. However, we can promise you that the Joe and Joe Weather Show will remain a free item. Okay.
A freewheeling website.
Right. Where you don't have to pay to listen to us rant. Okay. You just don't. All right. So
the more we rant, the more people hit the tip jar.
Yeah.
They say they act like the ranting.
Yeah. Well, then our number of viewers go up too. All right, so here's the upper air from the late afternoon GFS, which wasn't too different from the 12Z run. But the bottom line is, look at the Pacific. If the Pacific is anything but a fire hose, and again, watch those troughs just keep dropping down along 160 degrees west, and that is key because you see what's going on in the east at the same time. You got a trough dropping down at 160, and you've got a trough dropping down this weekend in the eastern part of the U.S. And that's going to bring, I think, a fairly decent shot of cold air. It's going to be colder air than what we're seeing now. There's also we didn't mention this, but there is also, we were talking, for how long about the GFS spinning up Category 3 hurricane and then bringing it up either into the Bahamas or over Cuba. Well, there's probably going to be some tropical development, but what's different though is the fact that it's going to be going further east, and that actually helps the cause of the forcing in the atmosphere of tropical moisture is actually helping to strengthen these troughs in the eastern part of the United States. So this now becomes a situation where you kind of want a tropical system to develop because of where it's tracking. It's not going to be reinforcing any kind of ridging to its northwest, but rather it's going to be responding to a trough and helping to make that trough even deeper in the eastern part of the United States. But even going forward past early next week, the trough in the Pacific lifts out, only to see another one drop down at the same time. You've got a vigorous upper low dropping southeastward from Lake Winnipeg, Joe, into the Ohio Valley and into the Northeast. This is for Wednesday into Thanksgiving Day. And if this verifies, as you said yesterday, it's going to be cold. I mean, really cold Thanksgiving Day. And maybe there could be, with a trough like that you could see some snow flurries running around or snow showers.
I'm concerned about the fact that it's Thanksgiving. We already have a fair number of people that are coming to our house Thanksgiving Day. And the last thing that I need is for my electric provider, although I do have a generator, so but I don't want to really deal with that on a holiday. But the wind, Joe, I think we're going to be looking at some very strong winds with that push of cold weather that's going to be moving in on the day before Thanksgiving into Thanksgiving Day. Gusty, strong winds. Temperatures will be in the 30s. It's going to feel probably like the 20s. And let's not rule out the possibility that we could see some scattered snow showers or flurries. We may see our first snow sightings here, I think, on Turkey Day next week.
And by the way, it should be noted, I'm going to get to the GFS surface in a moment, but
thank you, Helen Bertona.
You're absolutely right. We're going to get the GFS surface in a moment because I want to point something out with that in line with what you just said. But just want to finish this long range. Now we're into Thanksgiving, of course, as we said, this deep trough, another trough dropping down at 160. This one lifts out somewhat, but there's a lot of it still gets left behind in the east in a colder scheme. And then we have, as we get deeper into the long range, the model sends another bowling ball down from Lake Winnipeg into the east for another deep trough as another arm gets down along 160. So, we seem to be the atmosphere seems to be looking to lock into some kind of pattern here that's going to last for a while. And now, of course, on the last day of this run is November 29th. We're not even into December yet. So if I were, being a winter weather lover, but if you're a winter weather lover, seeing this type of pattern here as we go through the second half of the month of November, you certainly have my permission to feel more encouraged about a colder and snowier start to the winter, at least. Whether it lasts beyond that, I don't know. But you have to be encouraged with what you're seeing. Now, with respect to the surface here, I want to kind of go over a few things with that, and I will let me bring up the surface map now, and then Joe, you can do a little bit of Hawaii for Michael McGuire, if you would, after that. So just give me a moment here while I set
William, you didn't know I had a balloon. He said Joe Ray balloon is being grounded. I presume that's for the Macy's Thanksgiving Day parade. That would be something, Joe, to have a balloon. The Joe Ray. Here comes the Joe Ray
balloon. Yeah, well, you'd have to go down to Central Park West to watch them blow the balloons up on Wednesday night.
Yeah. And by the way, only once, Jason Schaefer is just automatically saying no balloons this year. Only once in 1971 has there been a Thanksgiving Day parade without the big balloons. And what they've been doing in recent years, even though the wind criteria was highly questionable to fly those balloons, I mean, back in a former era, they probably would have just thrown up their arms and said, no, 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 we're not going to fly them this year. But in recent years, what they've been doing, the little trick they've been doing is they've been inflating the balloons and they've been flying them literally like very low to the ground, hoping that the winds would not be. And they tried that about 15 or 20 years ago. One of the balloons hit, I think, a light pole, but actually hit a woman and seriously injured her.
I remember that.
I think what goes on now is that those balloons I think there may be a lot of money invested in those balloons, commercial wise or whatever. I'm not sure, but there must be a reason why they're almost insistent on trying to fly the balloons, even when the weather conditions, the criteria are leaning toward don't fly.
Yeah.
So we'll see what they do this year. Right now, it looks like it's going to be rather windy on Thanksgiving Day, so we'll see what happens and how they play that out.
NHC, the Hurricane Center, well, they can't put their feet up just yet. They've got a area there in red in the south central and south and central Caribbean, and the forecast is for a 70% chance for a tropical depression or a tropical storm forming by the time we get to the late portion of this week. It will have an indirect impact on what's going on in the eastern part of the United States from the standpoint of the pattern. I don't think we have to worry about getting anything from this. And Jess Harden, do y'all think, I live in North Georgia, so I can say this, do y'all think Alabama could end up with at least one major snowstorm this winter? You know what? I'm just, as I said before, Jess, if you're waiting for a pattern where that could happen, what you're seeing now and going into December, if that were to continue, I think the answer to that question would be, yeah, you might have a shot. I don't know that it will happen, but you certainly want to have a weather pattern like this to give you some chances, as opposed to something where you're in a ridge position and you have almost no chance. Fled, about the EPO charts. Yeah, as soon as when Joe's doing his thing with Hawaii, I'm going to get the EPO charts.
Okay.
Okay, so that there's that. So let me run through the GFS surface here real quick. And of course, this upper trough in the east, what it's doing is it just slightly reinforces the chilly air that's over us, and it'll be around for another day. We'll see the temperature start to bounce Wednesday and Thursday. The Gulf low moves into the eastern Gulf, and another low forms off the east coast of Florida, and you see it here, and that starts to run northeastward up the coast. At the same time, you've got this cold front that's approaching for Friday night into Saturday. Now, do we get some rain on the western edge of the low? Do we get the showers from the cold front? Is there a dry slot in between? The models seem to be a little slower with the cold front because the low sort of, causes the front to sort of slow down until it goes by, and then the front goes through. So then you might want to put some question marks as far as Saturday is concerned. But then behind it is a fairly decent shot of cold air that comes into the northeast and northern mid-Atlantic states. Doesn't really quite go all the way down, but it does. Some of it's going to filter south, but the coldest air is going to be probably from, say, Maryland, Northern Virginia, and then northward up through into upstate New York and New England, and also back over into the Great Lakes. That high comes in. We're cold into next Tuesday. Now, here's where it gets a little interesting. With that next trough for Thanksgiving Day, Joe, you've got a cold front with a low in the northern part of this in the Great Lakes that looks like the model on this one wants to occlude that low out, and suddenly everything goes to a secondary that's sitting in northern New Jersey on Wednesday afternoon, and then heads up into upstate New York. This is off the 18Z run, by the way. And right. You see it there, deepening as it goes along, and behind it, you get a tight pressure gradient, and this is cold air that actually gets, pretty far south down into the southeast and into Florida. So there's your, cold air spreading out. Again, this is what you see when you've got a negative East Pacific oscillation in play. And then there appears to be, just kind of on the chilly side going through the weekend that follows Thanksgiving. And then here comes another cold front with another high coming down out of Canada. And at the same time, on the 29th, the GFS, which is on the last day, has got a low off the Carolinas with some snow on the coast there, but who knows that far ahead of time. But bottom line is, it's a colder pattern that's going to emerge, and we're going to have to see, what it ultimately means with regards to getting there, as far as the weather is concerned, and what the weather for Thanksgiving is going to be like. And right now, it does look like the latter part of next week is going to be quite cold for this time of year.
I would agree. I would absolutely agree. And I think if the 18Z is right, the 18Z GFS, what a day for travel. The supposedly getaway day, a big travel day a week from Wednesday.
Right.
The last thing we need is all of that moisture, all of that heavy rain and gusty. That looks like a nightmare of a situation for travelers here in the eastern part of the country for next week.
By the way, we've got 90 likes, Joe, so if you like the show, hit the like button. You know why? Because, Joe, I love to go over 100 likes, and it makes us feel so good when people hit the like button, because like anybody, we like to be liked. So anyway, you can go ahead and do Hawaii, if you would, for Michael McGuire. Sorry it took so long for us to get to it.
Well, you had to finish your rant. Or rants.
Yes.
Or I don't know what it is. Anyway, we showed this map last week. This was updated last Thursday. It shows that all of the islands of Hawaii are underneath some form of dry or abnormally dry conditions. The yellow, and this I believe is the island of Kauai, and they have abnormally dry weather. But as you head to the south and east, you see that in orange here, we have moderate drought in the big island of Hawaii. We have, and also on Maui, we have severe drought. And we even have a few spots of extreme drought here in Hawaii County and also here in Maui, which, of course, suffered a lot of problems due to the drought, dry conditions this past summer. So you're looking at this and you're saying, well, when is this finally going to end? When are we finally going to have something a little bit better to look at? So why don't we take a look quickly using the GFS, and this is the 18Z run. This is the upper level conditions, 500 millibar conditions over the Central Pacific. Here, of course, is the Hawaiian Islands. And as we move along from today and we move forward, what you're looking for, if you're looking for any kind of rainy or prolonged period of unsettled weather, which is something that the Hawaiian Islands would like to see, you'd like to see some kind of a trough. And here we are now, Friday, November 24th. This is the day after Thanksgiving, and still no sign of anything. But as we progress now toward, well, and again, please take this with a grain of salt, because this is like 294 hours out. This would be for Sunday, the 26th of November. There is a trough of sorts.
Do you have that on the screen, Joe?
Yeah.
Because I'm still seeing the Hawaii drought map.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me go back here.
Finally, somebody else gets hit for not putting maps up on the screen.
Oh, come on, Joe. Let me just. I'm trying to. You're shrunk here, and so in order for me to get to the share capability.
Oh, you got to enlarge me.
I got to enlarge.
You got to enlarge.
And I'm not able to enlarge. Why can't I?
Hit the escape key.
Technology. Chat pin. That's all I'm seeing is chat pin.
All right. Why don't you tell me what you had up, and then I can bring it up.
Hold on. I'm not gonna give up that easy.
All right. While you're figuring that out, I got the EPO charts up.
Go to the EPO.
Okay, so you figure that out, and then we'll go to the EPO and come back to you. So, I thought I had the EPO chart. I guess I don't. Hang on, I gotta find it now. I had them. I swear to God, I had them. Oh, good Lord, have mercy. Okay, it won't let me open this in a window. It does open it in a window. Okay, great. All right, so here's the all right, so we're going to look at the EPO here, folks, and this is the European. Thank you, Fled Weather, for sending this. It is most appreciated. I cannot enlarge it because of how I saved it, but I couldn't find it in my files. It's there somewhere, but just for the sake of time. So the European has the EPO going negative uh, right around Monday. Actually, I'm sorry, over the weekend, and that's going to be with this cold front. So we're going to go up positive ahead of the cold front, then we're going to go negative by almost 3 standard deviations, which is a lot. And then we're going to stay negative until we get toward the end of Thanksgiving week, and then it starts to go go back neutral and then slightly positive. So that may just be an indication that we're going to be in between systems. But on the other hand, you do see the fact that we do go negative, and it's on the strong side as far as the negative reading is concerned. Now the GFS, on the other hand, is it's got this brief rise above neutral before the Thanksgiving plunge, but we're going negative this weekend, staying negative through the first part of next week, a brief rise and then another drop down as we head toward the end of the month and run our way toward the beginning of December. So this is something that, again, if you like cold weather, if you like winter weather, you want the East Pacific Oscillation to be in a negative phase, and you are going to get that. And thank you again to Fled Weather for sending those to me. Now, Joe's got the Hawaiian chart.
Yes, I do. Don't ask me how I was able to do it, but I was able to do it. And all right, so as I said, here we are on November 21st, and we're heading into the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, and then here is Thanksgiving. And what you want to see, if you want any kind of unsettled or wet or showery weather for Hawaii, is you want to see some kind of a disturbance, a trough, if you will. And we don't have anything like that, at least going to and beyond Thanksgiving. Then we continue beyond and see toward the end of the Thanksgiving weekend on November 26th. Sure enough, there is a trough that's trying to dig down, and it looks like Hawaii is going to be seeing some of that. In fact, it looks like they will be in a pattern where they could very well be seeing some kind of a disturbance, some kind of a storm, which may bring them perhaps some prolonged period of precipitation, if not at least some significant shower activity. That would be for the very end of the month. In fact, if I change things a little bit here, change things up to show precip and moisture, let's take a look here. And you could see that, indeed, as we get toward the end of November 27th, there apparently is going to be some kind of a trough or some kind of a front that's going to be moving through. This is probably the wettest I've seen for Hawaii in quite some time, actually, and maybe a sign, hopefully, of things to come as they move into November. But yeah, there looks to be, at least if you want to take this at face value, toward the end of the month, after Thanksgiving, some significant shower activity. Notice, if you will, however, that as I'm backtracking here to the current situation, that there's hardly any kind of precip that falls, maybe a few scattered showers. One area of showers seems to shear off to the north of Hawaii and doesn't really do much for them anyway. So I guess, Joe, if you want to believe the long-range models, the long range on the GFS, that we might actually begin to see some activity, some significant shower activity along about, the 27th, the 28th of November. Certainly not enough to break the drought, but certainly better than what they have been dealing with over recent days and weeks in the Hawaiian Islands. And hopefully that might signal a change toward a wetter weather pattern as we move on into the winter months.
All
what
right.
they could really use is something known as a Kona storm. A Kona storm is a system that literally comes in and like sits over the islands for many days and just causes lots of clouds and lots of frequent shower activity. That would be good. I don't see this as a Kona storm. I see this more as a strong frontal line moving through, but it's a start, at least, for hopefully more precipitation for the islands again later on in the month.
All right. Okay, so we've been on for an hour, so let's do some Briller Jeopardy before I start. 114 likes. Thank you for taking us over the 100 mark. So on Briller Jeopardy tonight, thank you Scott Briller for sending this. We are still on the lowest temperature ever recorded for a given state. Okay, and we will start tonight with the state of Colorado, Joe Rayo.
Oh, dear me. Well, Colorado, of course, has Denver, the Mile High City, and you would think that that would be good or prone for very cold temperatures. I don't know, but Colorado. How about minus 45?
Minus 45. Not just like last night, Joe. Not low enough by a sizable margin, I might say.
Wow.
Christopher Alley, you're close at minus 58. Anthony at minus 55. Fledweather minus 56. Miss Fowlerite minus 56. But Maggie P, who is watching from the great state of Colorado,
Let me ask you
minus
a question. Is it, I mean, it's so far they've been going down, 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 and they haven't been cold enough. Is it in the minus 60s?
minus 61, Joe. Maggie P got it. Minus 61 in Maybell, Colorado.
Wow.
I don't know if it was maybe it was I don't know if it was downtown Maybell or if it was at the Maybell International Airport or they do have a maybe they have a heat island effect in the downtown area. I don't know. Connecticut, Connecticut,
Oh,
lowest
well,
temperature ever recorded in the state of Connecticut.
you mentioned this a few days ago, how right after the Kennedy snowstorm that the Hamptons, West
Right.
Hampton, or whatever, had like or no, it wasn't Islip.
Oh,
Which
West
is
Ham.
like minus,
It was no, it was Brookhaven Labs with
okay,
23
Brookhaven.
below 23 degrees below zero.
So you've got to figure that it's going to be at least as cold as that. So, oh wow! But I don't want to go overly cold. I mean, I don't think it's something like minus 40 for Connecticut. So I'll say somewhere. I'll say how about minus 33?
Minus 33. Very, very, very close, Joe. In fact, I would suggest that it probably was. If it wasn't downtown Coventry, Connecticut, it might have been at the Coventry International Airport that might have gotten to 33, one of the two. But officially in Coventry, whichever one it was, uh, we have actually a few people that hit this. Matthew Howe, Miss Fowlerite got it, and I thought I saw somebody else that got it too. Fowlerite and a number of you. Oh, Fledweather got it also. Minus 32. Minus 30. Oh, and Leon Probitsky also got it at minus 32. So a number of you, and Rich Rothmansky got it at minus 32. So a number of you got this correct. 30 minus 32. Delaware. Delaware. And I will tell you the town. It was in Millsboro, Delaware.
Oh, not Wilmington, Newark.
No, no.
um,
Millsboro, Delaware.
it's Delaware. I can't imagine that it was. I can't imagine it was like in the minus 20s. Um, how about minus 15?
All right, we may have just taken a brief internet hit here. So
Eh,
if you get the circle of death, it shouldn't last, hopefully. So I will just continue. The next one we're going to do is Florida, the great state of Florida.
well, Florida, of course, has a wide area from north to south. And a place like Tallahassee or Jacksonville could get extremely cold as opposed to, let's say, Miami or Key West or whatever. So that's probably where we're looking, is probably up north. And I would see now my debate is going on as to whether or not it could possibly be below zero. Um,
Follow your instincts.
my instinct, my instinct says it's probably something like zero. So I'll say zero, and I'll say Jacksonville or Jacksonville or I'm not sure about Tallahassee because Tallahassee is so close to the Gulf, and that may keep them warmer by a few degrees.
All right.
I don't know. I'll say 0 degrees.
Okay. First of all, we took that little internet hit here right as I announced Delaware. So everybody's asking me about Delaware. Minus 17 was Delaware. And on the replay, it'll have it. So you could see, there's a whole bunch of you that got a few of you that got the minus 17. So, here we go. So for Florida, we have Frank Scalera, Rich Rothmansky at -2. Matthew Howe is at -2. Northern Grace is at +2. David Fuller is at -3. Patrick Darcy is at -2. Sheenapedia and Mike McGuire and Fledweather at -9. The answer is -2, and it was in Tallahassee.
Wow, I would not have thought of that.
Yes.
So the two things, I would not have thought it would go to below zero, but as you obviously just pointed out, it does. And I would have chosen someplace further inland. Like I said, I thought Tallahassee's proximity to the Gulf Coast might have kept it a little bit warmer, but that's pretty interesting.
Now the last one is Fire Camp, Georgia, is where it happened. They have the record for the lowest temperature ever recorded in the state of Georgia. I believe it may have also been tied with Brasstown Bald, which is 10 minutes from my house at 5,000 feet. I don't know where Fire Camp, Georgia is, but they hold the record for Georgia. So let's see. Michael Azera, I'm not sure if that is -30. Keith James is -37. No, not quite. Todd Keast, you're new to the chat board, Todd. Welcome. -19. Fledweather -28. Christinapedia -12. Joe, did you give a number? I'm sorry if you did. Could you repeat
No,
it?
I didn't. I don't know. The fact that you're at 2,200 feet above sea level pretty much tells me that it's probably colder than -17. Maybe not quite as cold as, let's say, -30 or whatever like that. So I'll say like -25.
Actually, you should have said -17 like Leon Probitsky did.
Oh, it was -17.
It was -17. And
Oh.
and Brasstown also hit minus. I think I saw that it hit once. Was the record low here was -17. Well, I'll have to double check on that. Although I don't know if Brasstown Bald is an actual reporting station. I have to also, I'll check all of that out.
Well, if they're not, maybe you can volunteer to be their official.
No, I'm good just keeping things to myself. No, I don't want to start doing day-to-day obs. My phone does it for me. I mean, I'll look, but I don't have to sit there and write it down in a journal or anything like that. So, any parting comments? We've gone almost an hour and 10 minutes.
Considering there really isn't much to talk about weather-wise, the fact that we went an hour and 10 minutes is pretty darn good.
Well, I mean, there was stuff to talk about in the medium and long range. So, we have that. And of course, we'll be back tomorrow night at 7:35 to do it all over again.
Yes, sir. And we want to thank again the chairman, Scott Briller, David Fuller, Michael McGuire, William Huber, Fledweather, Helen Bertona, Johnny Quest, Joe's Weather Channel, and again, Anup Patel Vlogs,
Right.
for hitting the super chat tip jar tonight.
And the Joe and Joe Weather Show is brought to you by our affiliate Tempest by WeatherFlow. You can get the revolutionary Tempest weather system and join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. The link is pinned to the top of the chat board. It's also on the descriptor to this video. Use the coupon code I-WANT-A-WEATHER-STATION for anything you purchase there, be it the weather station or any of the other weather electronic devices that they have, or even smart weather fashion. Use that coupon code I-WANT-A-WEATHER-STATION, and if you do, you will get
10% off.
Yeah, this was good. I felt good after that getting rid of the troll. Got rid of 2 trolls in 3 weeks. I'm on a roll here, folks.
What a troll watch.
Bring them all on, and I'll take care of them.
And thank you for the 124 likes tonight. Very good.
All right, folks. So we'll see you tomorrow night at 7:35 p.m. Good night.
Good night, folks.